Hello, all warriors of light and future warriors of darkness, and welcome back to another discussion video. Today we are going to be looking into the new updates for the Shadowbringers site. Now, I've mentioned this before, but we have a special site dedicated to all the new lore and information regarding the new Shadowbringers expansion. And today we got a surprise where they unleashed a whole lot of new information, and this is going to be just looking into exactly what was revealed to us today. At first glimpse, there doesn't seem to be any changes on the site when you just first look at it. At least until we move down to the middle of the screen and we see this. The warriors of light embrace the darkness and forge a new fate. Alamigo is free at last from imperial rule, but that liberty may prove fleeting as the empire moves to both reclaim this bloodied nation and subjugate all of Eorzea. In their hour of need, however, they cannot turn to the warrior of light, nor to the scions, who yet slumber, their souls adrift. The realm is left to struggle without its saviors, for they have been beckoned beyond time and space, beckoned to the first. Here, a new adventure begins in a world where light ushers all into oblivion. But hope is not yet lost, for where there is light, there is shadow. So that isn't at all cause for concern. According to this, with the Empire knocking at the Alliance's door, now may not be the best time to be heading off to another world. Of course, I have a feeling that we may not have much of a choice at the same time, so I just hope that we get back in time to save the world again. Anyway, we have some new lore from these three sections, which tell us a little bit more about the story, the challenges, and the system that's all going to be waiting for us. We'll start first with the story, where the hero becomes villain, as the warrior of light embraces the dark and embarks upon an adventure that transcends worlds. First of all, before I go any further, I don't like that they're using the term villain. I don't know what's going to happen, but I can't see the Warrior of Light becoming the bad guy like the Ascians, regardless of the whole using the darkness stuff, but that's just me. Anyway, this part of the site shows a little more on the lore of the lands that we're going to, and the foes that's going to be waiting for us. The Flood of Light rendered the vast majority of the first devoid of life, with Norvadant remaining as the last bastion. Being a reflection of the source, its climates and environs resemble those of Eorzea, though the cultures of its diverse range of inhabitants have taken an entirely different course over its troubled history. So not only is it showing us some of the videos that we've gotten here, but we have a little bit more information describing Norvadant as a whole. We have 2 new cities as well as 5 new areas we can explore. However, there is a good chance that there will be at least one more new area that they're keeping secret from us, and I'm going to be placing money on that. But first, let's have a look at the 2 cities. The first being the Crystarium, a bustling city that developed around the Crystal Tower in the years following its sudden appearance in Lakeland. It serves as a safe haven for people of all races and creeds as they join hands in the struggle against the merciless Sin Eaters. Alright, so this already gives us some very interesting info that the Crystal Tower mysteriously appeared, so it's not supposed to be naturally a part of this world, I'm guessing. I'm sure that we will have some more information on that later on, but the point is that we already seen parts of it in the trailer, and we can see that this is a combination of kind of like Rhalgr's Reach and Mordona by the looks of things. And I'm willing to bet that this is going to be the first city that we're going to visit, just like how Ishgard and Rhalgr's Reach was for us in the last few expansions. Anyway, moving on from that, if you want to see more about the Crystarium, we have all this beautiful artwork and even screenshots and videos. So this is definitely going to be one of the highlights for me when we go to the first. Next up we have the city of Ilmor, which we also saw a little bit in the trailer and the demos. With its influence extending across the majority of the Isles of Koslua, this powerful military nation once stood firm against the onslaught of the Sin Eaters. Recent years have seen a drastic shift in Ilmor's position, and the wealthy upper classes turning their backs on the plight of the world, indulging in an endless parade of decadence and debauchery. So there we have some more info on Ulmor, and learn that while the people here have the power to lend their aid to the cause, they decided to simply enjoy their last few days alive before fading into the light. Pretty sad way to go, but hey, who am I the judge? I get the feeling that when we arrive here, we're going to try to convince these fat cats to get off their lazy butts and get to work. That may prove to be difficult though. Next, we're going to look into some of the other areas of this place, starting off first with Ratika, which I think is Norvadant's version of Gridania. Once, long before its towering trees were seeds, in this millennia-old forest stood the royal capital of the advanced magical civilization, the Ronkan Empire. The stony remnants of its lost grandeur can still be spied beneath the shadowy boughs. And judging from the artwork alone, you can clearly see the ruins. And also, if you recall, this is where we saw Urianger and the Yashtola Matoya as the forest burned all around us. I can't say for sure what's going to happen here, but based on that scene alone, I can say that it looks like shit is about to go down in this part of the woods. So we might want to be careful around there. Now, Areng is an equivalent to Udal from what I can tell, and we find out about this. It was on the edges of this vast desert occupying the southern expanses of Norvrand that the flood of light has halted. Inhospitable from the beginning, it now lies on the threshold of life and all-consuming radiance. So this is the very borders to where we have literally life and death. It would seem that at some point when the flood of light came, it stopped here for apparently no reason. I mean, you can still see the crystallized light behind it. It's like an eternal wave of light. And I'm guessing that when the Warriors of Darkness first left this place and when Menphilia first arrived, she managed to somehow put a stop to the light, and maybe that's why it's all sort of frozen here. But somehow things didn't get any better, they just sort of stayed stagnant since then. At least that's the way I see it. I'm sure that we'll find a way to help restore the night while we're here. Moving on, this one is probably my favorite, and if I had to guess, it might be the equivalent to Ishgard, perhaps. Ilmeg. Tucked away in the mountains, this enchanted land was once home to the kingdom of Volbert. When men abandoned it following the flood of light, it instead became home to the Fae folk, the playful and childlike pixies chief among them. So this place looks so pretty and cute, and I just love the idea of the Fae folk. In fact, I wonder what they would say to us when they learned that we have fairies that we can use in battle. Anyway, this is where we're going to be meeting the pixies as well as other Fae creatures, and I can't wait. Out of all the lands we've seen so far, this one is probably the one I'm looking forward to seeing the most. Next up is the latest of the new areas that we learned about, and it's called Kalusha, which seems to be the lands of Limsa Lominsa in this world. The largest island in Norvadant, the greater part of Kalusha lies under the dominion of Ymor, the city of final pleasures. Compared to other lands, it is known for experiencing few Sin-Eater attacks, a reputation which draws throngs of refugees to its shores. Alright, so this is a land that seems to be a little bit more peaceful than a lot of the rest of Norvadant, but it's also where Ymor is stationed, so there's no telling what kind of landscape we will be getting. But from what we can see in this picture here, it doesn't look like the happiest place to be right now. I kind of get like this sort of martial law in a dead wasteland kind of vibe from it. And finally, we have Lakeland, which is supposed to be the first new area that we get when we go into the expansion. And just like we thought, it's a giant lake and giant land. I don't know why the other places have such different names, but I'm actually quite grateful for a simple one. A verdant region centered around the source, the Great Lake whence it derives its name. Rich in ether, this land has long been held sacred by the elves, its original inhabitants. Nowadays, it falls under the aegrius of the Crystarium, mankind's final bastion in the war against the Sin-Eaters. Again, this is supposed to be just outside the Crystarium and the first place we visit. Still, despite the fact that the people here are waiting for the legend of this stranger from a faraway land who will save this world from the light, I don't think we will be receiving the warmest of welcomes. Right, so those are just some of the places that we know so far, but it really wouldn't surprise me if it turns out they have another area waiting for us that they just haven't revealed yet. In the past, we found that there are at least 6 new areas, not counting the cities, so I am going to be betting that they do have one more waiting in the wings. Now next, we're going to move on to the 2 new trials that we're going to be unlocking, Titania and Innocence. Now, we don't know exactly the full details on future primal battles because we don't really know if these 2 can really be counted as primals. Out of the 2 of them, however, it does appear that Titania may seem more likely to be a primal. A being of great power, Titania holds sway over the pixies and other Fae folk of Ilmeg. Folk who, despite their notoriously temperamental natures, now bow before their ruler one and all. So, as in the legend of Titania in the real world, she's supposed to be the Queen of the Fae, who bears a strong resemblance to a certain pair of twins that we all know, doesn't she? Whether or not she's a primal or a real person, I can't say for sure, but I do love her design, and I'm looking forward to seeing her battle. As for the second battle, we have Innocence. Innocence sits at the very top of the hierarchy of Sin Eaters, the beings that emerged from the flood to plague what remains of mankind. Beyond that, its nature and purpose remain shrouded in mystery. Now, we don't really have too much more information other than that on Innocence, but it doesn't appear to be a primal. Rather, it's a Sin Eater, which could be a first for us because up until now, the first two trials that we faced in the expansions had always turned out to be primals, but this could be a nice way to break that tradition. While we don't know anything else about Innocence, it has been stated that it will be playing a very important role later on in the game. And I'm afraid that the battle is going to be anything but innocent. And moving down to the last part of the screen, we have all three of the beast tribes that we're going to be getting. Though they are hardly more than footnotes for now, I'm sure they're going to add more lore later on. First off, we have the Pixies. Though they boast a command of magic unrivaled in Norvidant, Pixies generally limit their sphere of activity to Ilmeg, dancing amongst the winds on colorful wings. Do not be fooled, however, they are often as cruel as they are carefree. Yeah, so while it has been stated that while they won't be as annoying as the Moogles were, we're still going to be having a lot of trouble from the Pixies. And what it says about them from this alone has me more than a little concerned about their part in Shadowbringers. Next we have the Nuamul. Though somewhat canine in appearance, the Nuamul are indeed members of the Fae and make their homes in Ilmeg. They are more fairly disposed towards man than their pixie cousins, however, and maintain close ties with the people of Vorbert to its day. Out of the three beast tribes that we know so far, we probably know the less about the Nuamul for now, but apparently they seem to be a lot easier to get along with mankind than the pixies, so we'll just have to wait and see what kind of role they have to play. And finally we have the dwarves. This insular tribe dwell upon Mount Gulug and Colusa, its diminutive people rarely leaving the community of their birth. Dwarves are known for their skill at miming, metallurgy, and crafting mechanical marvels, but they themselves consider the true marks of dwarfhood to be respect for tradition and adherence to strict ancestral laws. Dwarves have always been a popular race to have in fantasy games, and I've been saying it from the beginning that since we have the tall and graceful elves, why not have the short, stocky, and bearded dwarves? Funny enough, the dwarves are the equivalent to Lalafels in this world, and it does seem a little strange that they would be made into a beast tribe, but hey, that's just my way of thinking. Alright, so let's move back and get a closer look at some of the new challenges and gameplay that is going to be waiting for us. First off, we have a look at the artwork for the new Alliance raid, Roarhide Dark Apocalypse. But aside from this artwork, we don't know anything else, other than the fact that we have two esteemed guest creators to help create what they promise to be a harrowing new story, which I will be holding to them. I really do want to see them knock us over with how good a story it is. We also have a quick screenshot, or rather just a piece of artwork of the new 8-player raid in the form of Eden. Beyond the boundaries of Noratietles, the Empty, a land drowned in the primordial light of the flood. To redress the balance of the elements, our hero must wield a power the likes of which the first has never known, the power of Eden. So apparently after we help to bring back the dark of this world, we start to move towards recreating the parts of the world that have already been erased by the light. In order to do that though, we first have to learn a few new types of powers known as Eden. Now, how they're going to do this? No idea, but gods, I hope they make it as good as it sounds. Moving down, we are shown a few screenshots of some of the new dungeons that we're going to be running through. We don't know much else other than these pictures, I'm afraid, not even the names of some of these places, but as light threatens to engulf Norvidant, her people would seek sanctuary in the shadow, yet even the dark denies them solace. What new dangers lurk in the dungeons of Shadowbringers? So we know that one of these seemed to be some sort of ancient ruins by the looks of things. The second one definitely takes place in Ilmeg, possibly some kind of trial from the Pixies, and the last seems to be a burning town at the foot of a mountain, possibly part of Colusa, as my best bet anyway. Either way, I do know that with the release of Shadowbringers, they will be having at least 9 new dungeons. Whether they're going to be part of the storyline or extra side dungeons, I don't know yet, but I'm ready for it. And finally, we have the restoration of the Holy See of Ishgard. The Dragon Song War has long since ended, but its scars yet remain. As man and dragon work together to rebuild the Holy See, the people of Ishgard have come to find they want for helping hands. Now, this is the new in-game content for disciplines of hand and land. And they have stated throughout the interviews that since they received so many requests to return to Ishgard to see people like Sir Emmerich, Edmonds, and all the others, they decided to add this in. We will be helping to rebuild the great city of Ishgard alongside the dragons, and it would seem that they will be updating the content for this all throughout 5.0. So by the time that 5.0 is over, we may not even recognize Ishgard anymore. Alright, and that's already a lot of information, but we still have some more. We're going to be moving on to the system screen, which will give us more info on some more features. The introduction of entirely new systems as well as improvements to existing ones. Delving into new jobs and new player races. So yes, this is going to be a little bit more information regarding the new jobs of the tanking Gunbreaker and the DPS Dancer. We'll start off with the Gunbreaker first. The Hrothgar of Northern Ishgard have passed the art of the gunblade from one generation to the next. The weapon itself combines a sword with a firing mechanism, emitting a range of magical effects by utilizing ether calculi, imbued, and cadrites. Originally employed by Queen Grunhilda's personal guard, they were once known as Grunhilda's Blades and differ greatly from the similar named weapons used in the Garlean Empire. So it has been stated that we will be accepting the quest for the Gunbreaker job in Gridania, and from what we learned here, it seems a safe bet to think that our teacher for this job is going to be a Hrothgar. As for the Dancer, from the Near Eastern nation of Thennar comes a troupe of bewitching, graceful performers. Though certainly elegant and beautiful, their movements also speak of martial discipline, of a pulsing, persistent energy whose rhyme can inspire souls and soothe troubled hearts. Inured into the hardships of the road, these dancers have learned to land throw-in weapons with the same exact precision as their footfalls, removing any who would obstruct the endless beat of the dance. So I can't say for sure what kind of a teacher we're going to be having here, but it would seem that we will be able to unlock the quest for it somewhere in Limsa. And so I know which job I'm going to be going for. Next up, we're going to move on to more information with the two new races. Hailing from the distant shores of Isambard, the Hrothgar are burly people of lion-like appearance, or the males are at least. Females number staggeringly few among their population, and thus are rarely so much as glimpsed by other races. The Hrothgar's imposing countenance, mitigated not at all by their sharp claws and still sharper fangs, incited panic amongst Eorzeans upon their arrival. As they were also unable to communicate, initial interactions with the common folk often escalated into conflict. It was not until the Hrothgar gained mastery of the common tongue that fears were allayed, and in time they would be seen as neighbors, welcomed in all corners of the realm. So we have the powerful race of cat-like men that remind me strongly of the Thundercats. Maybe that's who the Thundercats were, and after Thundera was destroyed, a ship of these cat-like people arrived in Eorzea. Hey, it could happen, I've heard stranger tales. Either way, I thought that it was rather convenient to add this in to explain why we don't have any female Hrothgar. Yet as for the two clans, we have the He-Lions and the Lost. Hrothgar of the He-Lion clan are easily discerned from their counterparts by the warm color of their fur. In ages past, they would be found primarily in the southern reaches of Isambard, devout servants of their queen, one and all. Though they themselves had no word to describe their clan, scholars came to call them He-Lions after observing what the people's lives all but revolved around their queen's needs as planets circle the sun. Meanwhile, the Lost are said to be more like this. Unlike their He-Lion brothers, the Lost have always been a free-spirited people, aptly named for their traditionally nomadic lifestyle unbound by the whims of any reigning monarch. They are known to ply various trades from seasonal worker to mercenaries to peddler. They are reluctant, however, to undertake duties at odds and with their proximity to travel. The cold wintry colors of their fur are said to serve as a symbol of their independent nature, which drove them from the warm embrace of their queen. So the He-Lions seem to be more of the strong, loyal guards to the queen, devoting their lives to duty and sacrifice, while the Lost are more wild and don't like to be tied down by anyone. Interesting, and it is going to be exciting to learn more about them. Now let's talk more about the Viera, which I know everyone was looking forward to. Of tall stature and slender frame, the Viera's physical appearance is strikingly similar to that of the Huon and the Elezen, save for their distinctive long ears. Adhering to a strict code known as the Green Word, they are prohibited from contact with the outside world under threat of exile. Their society is purely matriarchal, and males of age are seldom, if ever, found within the bounds of any village. They instead serve as protectors of the wood from the shadows, that no evil may ever encroach on their sacred lands. As for the two clans, the one that we've already seen been introduced to us are the Ratha, which is the clan that Fran was from. Viera of the Rava clan live primarily in the Golmore jungle, their umber skin allowing them to readily blend in with their surroundings. Though the males stand as wards of the forest, the females are adept hunters in their own right, fiercely guarding their homelands and their young. Despite attempts by the Dalmaskins to subjugate them, they have ever maintained a self-governing dominion. Though most would adhere to the traditions of the wood, some few have chosen to venture out into the world. And then we have the Vina. With skin as fair as the snow-capped mountains towering above, the Vina clan make their home in the forest lining the southwestern foothills of the Skate Range. Like the members of their sister clan, the Vina live as hunters and gatherers, laboring not only to protect the woods, but to nurture them. As the wind of war swept up a number of those who left their mountain homes, many such hardened hunters chose to set out for the distant shores of Eorzea. So the Rava are more of the desert forest types, while the Vina are more of the mountainous forests in the colder climates. But because it's so hard to live in those types of climates, especially with war brewing, they are much more open to the idea of setting out for distant lands. Really cool, and I'm really looking forward to seeing more of them. And finally, we are told a tiny bit more information of the trust system. The Shadowbringers players will have the opportunity to challenge dungeons with a party of trusted non-player characters, including various signs of the Seventh Dawn, but the traditional party matching systems will of course remain intact. There's also some minor factors such as the New Game Plus, which is a system that will allow you to replay previous completed quests while retaining your progression and job level. They increased the level cap, which will mean that the level cap will now be increased from 70 to 80, which means new actions for classes and jobs, as well as new foes to test your skills against. And of course, new gear and crafting recipes. With so much new adventures and places to go, we're going to have plenty more crafting resources to look forward to. These next two parts on the side are such as the media, which are things that we went over before, such as the trailers in the past, along with screenshots and artworks, while the products screen is going to be revealing more information on the in-game bonus items, as well as some information on the early access. Anyway, that's all that we have so far for the ever-increasing info on the Shadowbringers game sites, and they really did release a lot of things today. I hope that everyone enjoyed this, and if you want to check it out for yourself, you're free to do so. So, until next time and the next update, I hope that you're all going to be looking forward to it.